Okay, welcome back to the next part of the video. And in this video, I'm just trying to pick back up where I left off, or rather I should say pick back up at the point where I incinerated the XR2 in the last video, rather than re-record the whole thing from the point where I was, several thousand seconds away from Earth. It's easier to concentrate when I'm not recording videos, so I started back out at that point and just flew the whole thing over again. But now I'm basically back at the point where I was not paying close enough attention and let the nose of the vessel drop too much. My vertical speed dipped too far into the negative, and I couldn't get it back up in time to save the vessel from burning up. So that's basically back where I'm at now. And this time, hopefully, I can concentrate a little better and not burn up the vessel. I didn't sit there and save at any point during that previous flight, so I had to redo the whole thing. That's okay. It's just aggravating when stupid little things like that happen. I don't mind dying due to really bad decisions or not knowing what I'm doing or testing things, but when I just lose focus for a moment, look at a different MFD or whatever, and then I look back and suddenly I'm dead, I really hate that. So I'm going to start steering myself pretty aggressively now toward the base. I actually started steering myself a little earlier this time so that I wouldn't have to put in as much bank, because I think that's partly what caused me to have problems last time. It's easier to control your vertical speed when you don't have as much bank. So you can see base sync over there on the right. Actually, let me check something real quick. It says I'm targeting surface. I think it's correctly targeting wide awake, but for some strange reason, I've noticed both aerobrake and base sync will sometimes stop saying what you're targeting, even though you're still targeting the right thing. It'll like there was just said I was targeting the surface and I wasn't. I don't know why it does that. It's some glitch in the program, I guess. Actually, I think what it might be is when you target. I had selected the target of wide awake before I was captured, before my eccentricity was down below 1.0. And I think most likely when I finally got captured, when my eccentricity dropped down to 0.9, I think it's at that point that the target switches from what you previously had over to surface. But it's still but the MFD itself is still targeting wide awake. It just says that it's targeting surface. And again, I don't know why it does that. Some programming glitch. If I ever think about it, I'll maybe put a bug report in or something. And I've noticed aerobrake does the same thing. Maybe it's a feature. Maybe they consider that if you have your base targeted prior to being captured, that it's not a valid target after you're captured. I don't know. In my opinion, it's a glitch. I'm going to put in a little more bank. That off-base distance isn't really coming down quite as quickly as I'd like. You just have to really watch that vertical speed. And the altitude. So you can see map MFD over on the left. Our orbital line is getting really close to wide awake, and our distance off base according to base sync on the right MFD. Actually, if you look down again, notice that the base sync now says target surface again. I don't know what's up with that. Obviously, I didn't change anything. You would have saw it on the video. Weird. And I don't like that it does that, because it, you know, if you might look down and think, oh my god, I've been targeting the wrong thing all this time. At what point did it switch? I'll have to go back and look at the video and just watch, just to see when it's changed, and like try to figure out why that happens. Anyway, let me go down to warp 0.1 for just a moment and type in the base for the third time. Okay, there you can see, again, I've got it selected. Let's see how long it holds this time. Watch my vertical speed. Distance off base, it's down below 150 kilometers. Still got a little bit to go. For the banking, we're now 9,000 kilometers away from the base.
Information. APU fuel 70%.
Okay, I'm going to start rolling out. And this is where I died last time. This time I controlled my pitch better as I rolled out, so I'm not nosing into the atmosphere. Adjust my elevator trim a little bit. Let's climb up a little bit. Let's get to about 67 kilometers or so. Alright, and that'll give me just a moment to start aero brake. Target wide awake. And we are about 8,000 kilometers away from the base. After I slow down a little bit more, I'm going to roll over so I can use the attitude to hold autopilot. I kind of want to get down to a suborbital velocity first. So I need to bleed off another 500 meters a second. I'll watch my altitude, I'm getting pretty low.
Mach 26.
And we're 6,600 kilometers away from the base.
Mach 26.
Okay.
Mach 26.
I'm gonna get ready to roll over. Change that to AOA. Let's get our vertical speed zeroed out.
Mach 25.
I'm going to roll over here in just a moment. Just going to get climbing a little bit first. Alright, here we go. Rolling over. Okay.
Mach 24.
Okay, we're now 5,000 kilometers from the base. I'm gonna jettison all this extra locks, don't need it.
Mach 24. Warning, locks done. Warning, locks done. Warning, locks done. Warning, locks done. Warning, system low.
I wonder if I've got time to, I think I've got a locks module in here too. I'm not gonna worry about it. I just stowed the radiator, or rather the air brake.
Information. APU fuel 60%.
And we've almost topped out. We'll be back. We'll be heading back down shortly. In fact, since we're up in this part of the atmosphere, I can go ahead and warp ahead. And we're on our way back down. 2,800 kilometers from the base.
Mach 25. Mach 24. Mach 23.
And we're on our way back down.
Mach 22.
A little concerned about my angle of attack. I'm awfully steep. I mean, not my angle of attack, but rather my descent. I'm coming in from a fairly high altitude at a fairly short amount of distance. But I did slow down quite a bit, so
Mach 21.
hopefully it'll work. If not, we're dead.
Mach 20.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. Yeah, no problem.
Mach 19.
Alright, let's start banking a little bit. And let me bring up
Mach 18.
Glide slope.
Mach 17.
$900 kilometers to go.
Mach 16.
According to Aerobrake MFD, we're really well on target. Guess can't zoom in using that view. That information is really hard to see.
Mach 15.
Anyway, I need to pay attention to the landing anyway. 780 kilometers to the base.
Mach 14.
Dropping the AOA just a little bit. Looks like we're coming up a little short there. 650 kilometers to the base.
Mach 13.
$500 kilometers to the base.
Mach 12.
Should be in view before too long. $450 kilometers to the base. Still can't see it.
Mach 11. Mach 10.
300 kilometers to the base. And I'm going to start putting in a little more bank.
Mach 9.
There's the base. The island, it's kind of hard to see, but it's starting to come in view. Yeah, we need quite a bit more bank.
Mach 8. Mach 7. Information. APU fuel 50%. Mach 6.
So generally what I do is I let the vertical speed, or the speed, drop down to around 700 meters a second, and then I take over control.
Mach 5.
Okay. Got all the bank we need.
Mach 4.
Start rolling out. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Okay, rotation's off.
Mach 3.
Pitch is on. We're going to take over control. Just a moment. Right now, first thing I do is adjust the elevator trim because the autopilot sets it way down. And now I pitch steeply so I can see where I'm going. And it looks like we're in good shape. This is what I like the landing site to look like when I take over. It's in front of me, but it's far enough away that I can pitch over and have a good view of it. And my my velocity is low enough that I, have good control.
Mach 2. Mach 2.
I need to bank in toward the runway. And that glide slope helps me determine, how much bank Now we'll start rolling out a little bit. And we can see the runway lights. Lets us know
Subsonic.
if we're too high, too low. And right at the moment we're a bit too high. So we've got more
4,000.
downward pitch than we'll have normally. And we're pretty
3,000.
well on line with the runway.
2,000.
I'm going to use the brake
You
just
are
for a
cleared
moment,
to land.
just to bleed off a little bit of velocity. I'd say that's good enough.
1,000.
Close the air brake.
900. 800. 700.
And a little more.
600.
Landing gear.
500. 400.
And close the air brake.
3. Gear down and locked. 200. 100.
And extend the air brake one more time.
75. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10. 5.
And now we're flaring.
10. 7. 2. Wheels down.
And that wasn't a great touchdown. We lost a bit of velocity and kind of hammered the runway there a little bit, but I should have closed the air brake.
100 knots.
Just waiting to get wheel stop. I can see over in the hang on one moment.
Wheel stop.
Alright, there we go, wheel stop. Turn off that. Let me see if I can... Okay, if we look here, we got a gear touchdown at 4.75 meters per second. That's really pushing it. If I had closed the air brake a little sooner, we would have had a little more float, and I wouldn't have hit the ground so hard. That's if the vessel hadn't been as lightly loaded as it was, I would have crumbled the gear. If you look here, you can see that with a full load, if you exceed 2.8 meters per second when you touch down, you'll fold the gear. And a typical load is 4.2 meters per second, and we were at 4.7, so we were over this number, which means, with a typical load, we technically would have folded the gear on that landing. So it's a good thing I dumped the locks. And we're pretty light on mass otherwise, so we were really pushing it with that landing. I mean, we wouldn't have killed ourselves or anything. I mean, it just would have been a gear failure. That would have been all.
Using
Alright.
external O2.
Turn on external cooling, and let's just assess what
External
we've
cooling
accomplished here.
online.
We've gone from Well, way back in August, we went from Earth to Mars, and then recently I picked up that same scenario and took the XR2 from Olympus Space. We did a Venus sling, then came back to Earth, and our fuel budget was pretty much right on the money. If we take a look at burn time calculator, we can see how much fuel we have left. So we have, our fuel in video 3, where we went over, how much fuel budget we would have. Clearly we were correct on that, and I would not have needed that extra fuel module that I brought with me. So, but I brought it anyway just to make sure, plus it gave me a chance to explain how to calculate fuel and everything. So that's going to wrap it up, I suppose. That's going to be the end of this series. I hope you enjoyed it. That's a basic slingshot. We didn't really take anything into account on that slingshot. So in an upcoming video, I'm probably going to do a similar flight using the same dates. I'll probably do an abridged version of it instead of recording the whole thing from start to finish, because for one, we don't need to figure the dates out again, so that cuts out a whole video. I don't really need to, explain the fuel stuff, so that cuts out a whole video. What I really just want to explain in another version of this flight is how to come back to Earth and have an encounter velocity when you get here that is much lower. Remember, our encounter velocity on this flight was close to 16 kilometers per second, and that's because we took that's just because of the flight path we took. It was a fairly quick ride around the sun and back over to Earth, but because of that path that I took, we had a high encounter velocity. So if we take our time getting back over to Earth, then by the time we get here, we can have a much slower encounter at Earth, and that's something that I want to show in another video, is at least how to set it up. So that's it. If you liked this part of the video, and if you like the whole series, leave some comments down below. I'd love to hear from people, and I'll see you next time.